Nicolas Jackson is coming back to Chelsea. But does he still have a future at Stamford Bridge? By the time you finish reading this, you might change your mind about Nicolas Jackson. Whether you were one of his biggest fans or one of the loudest voices calling for him to be sold, the story of his season away in Germany and what happens next at Chelsea is something every single one of us needs to pay attention to. Because this is not just about one player. It is about what Chelsea does next, who leads the attack, and whether the club is building something real or just collecting names. So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let us talk about it properly. The beginning. Why Jackson left Chelsea in the first place. To understand where we are now, we need to go back to the start of this season and ask a simple question. Why did Jackson leave? Chelsea decided to send him on loan to Bayern Munich for the 2025-26 season. On paper, it sounded like a smart move. Jackson would go to one of the biggest clubs in Europe, get experience in the Bundesliga and Champions League, and come back a better player. Bayern, on the other hand, had an option to buy him permanently for £56 million if he hit a certain number of appearances. For Chelsea, this felt like a win-win. If Bayern triggered the clause, Chelsea would get good money. If they did not, Jackson would return with more experience under his belt. But how did it actually go? Life at Bayern back up to Harry Kane. Here is the honest truth about Jackson's time in Munich. It was not what anyone hoped it would be. When Jackson arrived at Bayern, he was not walking into a situation where he would be the main man. Harry Kane was already firmly established as Bayern's #1 striker. Kane is one of the best strikers in the world right now, and he rarely misses games. That meant Jackson found himself doing something he had never really done at Chelsea, sitting on the bench and waiting for his chance. For most of the season, he was used as cover. He came on as a substitute, played in games where the result was already decided, and only got occasional starts. The numbers tell the story clearly. To trigger the permanent purchase clause, Jackson needed to make around 40 appearances of at least 45 minutes each. He managed roughly 22 such appearances across the whole season. Think about that for a second. He played less than half the appearances needed to trigger the clause. That is not the story of a player who took a new league by storm. It is the story of a player who was third or fourth choice at a club that was already well stocked up front. So does that mean the loan was a complete failure? Not quite. And here is where it gets interesting, what Jackson did with his limited chances. When Jackson did play, he was not terrible. In fact, there were moments where he showed exactly why Chelsea bought him in the first place. He finished the Bundesliga season with 7 goals in 20 league appearances. For a player who was not a regular starter, that is not a bad return at all. He scored in some important moments, including a goal in a 4-3 win against Mainz that reminded people of the direct, energetic striker he can be at his best. But the real question is whether those numbers are enough to convince Chelsea to trust him as their main striker again. 7 goals from a backup role at Bayern is one thing. Being the focal point of Chelsea's attack week in and week out in the Premier League is a completely different challenge. And before the season is fully over, Jackson still has at least 2 more chances to impress. Bayern are in the Champions League semi-final against PSG, and they have the German Cup final against Stuttgart to look forward to. If Jackson can deliver in those big moments, it could change the conversation about his value going into the summer. Will he take those chances? That is the question. Jackson speaks, what he said and why it matters. After Bayern Munich sporting director Max Ebel made it clear that the German club would not be triggering the purchase option, Jackson decided to speak publicly about his future. And what he said was direct, honest, and perhaps a little surprising. He was clear that he wants to return to Chelsea. He said he still has a contract at the club and that his goal is to come back and reclaim his spot as the main striker. He did not try to hide behind vague words or leave things open. He said it plainly. He wants to be at Chelsea. He wants to be the #1, and he is ready to work hard to get there. He also addressed something that some Chelsea fans had been questioning. Was it a mistake to join Chelsea in the first place? Jackson said no, firmly and without hesitation. He spoke about how much the club has done for his career and how grateful he is for the opportunity they gave him. He said his time in Germany helped him grow as a player and that he is coming back a more experienced person. And then he said something that should matter to every Chelsea fan. He said he wants to repay the club on the pitch with no laziness, just hard work and results. Now, players say things like this all the time. It is easy to make nice statements to the media, but Jackson's words felt genuine. He was not trying to create drama or push for a move away. He was saying he wants to come back, fight for his place, and prove himself. Is that enough? Should Chelsea give him that chance? The problem, Chelsea has not been standing still here, is the part that complicates everything. While Jackson was in Munich, Chelsea did not leave his spot empty. They brought in players, adapted, and the team evolved. And now, heading into next season, there are already several strikers at Stamford Bridge who Jackson will have to compete with. João Pedro was integrated into the squad this season. Liam Delap is also in the picture. And perhaps most significantly, Emmanuel Omega is set to join from Strasbourg in the summer. That is a lot of attacking options for one position. Chelsea have been one of the most active clubs in the transfer market over the past few years. They do not tend to stop spending just because they already have players in a position. So the question is, where does Jackson fit into all of this? Is there really room for him in this new look attack? And then there is the manager situation. Chelsea are still searching for a permanent head coach. The identity and style of play the new manager wants to use will have a massive impact on which strikers suit the team. Some managers want a physical target man. Others want a runner in behind. Some want a striker who can link play and bring others into the game. Jackson is a specific type of player. He is quick, direct, and plays best when he is running at defenders and getting in behind. Not every system suits him, so depending on who Chelsea appoint, he could either be perfect for the new manager's vision or completely irrelevant to it. The money question, what is Jackson worth? Let us talk about the financial side of this for a moment. Bayern Munich passed on Jackson at £56 million. That is significant. It tells us that Bayern did not feel he was worth that price based on what they saw from him this season. And Bayern are a club that knows what they are doing. Now, Chelsea originally paid good money for Jackson when they signed him from Villarreal. He is 23 years old, he has a contract running until 2033, and he has shown in flashes that he can be a top striker in the Premier League. But his value right now, after a season as a backup in Germany, is probably lower than it was before the loan. If Chelsea decide to sell him this summer, they will likely get less than they paid for him. That is not ideal. But it might make financial sense if the club believes the money can be reinvested in a player who better fits the new manager's system. On the other hand, if Chelsea keep him and use him properly, there is every reason to believe Jackson can rediscover the form he showed during his best moments at the club. He is still young, he is still hungry, and he has just spent a season learning and growing at one of the best clubs in the world. What should Chelsea do? What would you do if you were making this decision? The club's circling. Is Jackson actually staying? While Jackson is publicly saying he wants to return to Chelsea, it is worth noting that other clubs have been paying attention. Reports have linked him with Juventus and AC Milan from Serie A, as well as Newcastle United from the Premier League. These are not small clubs. These are serious European sides who would offer Jackson regular first-team football and a chance to rebuild his reputation. Newcastle in particular makes a lot of sense as a potential destination if Chelsea decide to sell. They have money to spend, they want to push for the top of the Premier League, and they need a striker who can bring energy and pace to their attack. Jackson fits that profile, but here is the thing. Jackson has made his feelings clear. He wants Chelsea. He is not pushing for a move away. He has not been making noise about wanting out or sending signals to other clubs through the press. He said publicly that Chelsea is where he wants to be. That kind of loyalty and commitment should mean something. Not every player would do that. Some players in his position would have agents working overtime to find a new club, especially after a difficult loan season. Jackson is not doing that. Does that change how you see him? What Jackson needs from Chelsea? If Chelsea do bring Jackson back and give him another chance, they need to do it properly, not half-heartedly, not as a fourth-choice option who only plays when everyone else is injured. Jackson needs to know he is valued. He needs a manager who believes in him and plays a system that suits his strengths. He needs time to get back up to Premier League speed after a season in a different league, and he needs games. The worst thing Chelsea can do is bring him back, stick him on the bench for 3 months, and then sell him in January. That helps nobody. If the new permanent manager comes in and decides that Jackson does not fit the plan, Chelsea should have an honest conversation with him and find a solution that works for both parties. Maybe that is a sale to a club where he will play regularly. Maybe it is another loan. But whatever happens, Jackson deserves clarity and respect from the club he has shown real loyalty to. The case for keeping him. Let us make the strongest possible case for keeping Jackson at Chelsea next season. He is 23 years old. He still has his best years ahead of him. He has a contract until 2033, which gives Chelsea total control over his future. He scored regularly for Chelsea before the loan, including some really memorable goals. He is quick, he is direct, and he offers something different to most strikers Chelsea have had over the years. He went to Bayern, played in a difficult situation as backup to one of the world's best strikers, and still managed 7 goals in 20 appearances. That is not a failure. That is a player who made the best of a tough situation. And perhaps most importantly, he wants to be here. He is not looking for the exit. He is not trying to engineer a move away. He said publicly that he plans to come back and work hard for this club. In modern football, where player loyalty is almost non-existent, a 23-year-old striker saying he wants to stay and fight for his place is actually quite rare. Chelsea should not take that for granted. The case against keeping him now, let us be fair and look at the other side. Chelsea already have João Pedro, Liam Delap, and soon Emmanuel Omega. Adding Jackson back into the mix creates a serious logjam in the striking positions. Not everyone can play. Someone will be unhappy, and unhappy players in an overcrowded position can become a problem very quickly. The new manager might not want Jackson. They might have a completely different vision for how Chelsea should play, and Jackson might not fit it at all. If that is the case, keeping him just to keep him is a waste of everyone's time. There is also the question of whether Jackson can actually reclaim his place as the main striker. He is saying all the right things, but the competition is fierce. João Pedro had a strong season. Liam Delap has shown he can be a real presence up front. Omega is arriving with a lot of excitement around him. Is there really a clear path for Jackson to become number 1 again? And if Chelsea can sell him for good money to Juventus, AC Milan, or Newcastle, that might be the smartest business decision. Take the funds, reinvest in a position of greater need, and wish Jackson well on his next chapter. What we think will happen. The honest answer is that nobody knows for sure what Chelsea will do. There are too many variables. The new manager has not been appointed. The summer transfer window is not open yet. And these decisions tend to happen quickly and without much warning. But based on everything we know, here is what feels most likely. Chelsea will assess Jackson when he returns from Germany. They will have conversations with him and his representatives about where he fits in the new manager's plans. If the manager likes him and sees a clear role for him, he stays and gets his chance. If the manager decides he is not needed, Chelsea will look to sell him, probably to one of the European clubs who have been showing interest. Jackson's future at Chelsea will ultimately be decided by one person, whoever gets the manager's job. Everything else is just noise until that appointment is made. A message to the Chelsea community. For those of us who watch every Chelsea game, who debate every transfer, and who care deeply about what happens at Stamford Bridge, the Jackson situation is a test of something important. It is easy to write a player off when things do not go perfectly. It is easy to move on to the next shiny signing and forget about the players already at the club. Chelsea have been guilty of this pattern before, but Jackson is 23 years old. He went to one of the biggest clubs in the world, worked hard in a difficult situation, and came back saying he wants to be at Chelsea. He did not cause drama. He did not throw his toys out of the pram. He did not demand a transfer. He just kept working and then said clearly and simply that he wants to come back and do his job. That deserves at least a fair hearing. Final thoughts. The summer will tell us everything. The next few months are going to define not just Jackson's Chelsea career, but the direction of the club as a whole. Who is appointed as the next permanent manager? How does Chelsea reshape the squad? Which players stay and which ones move on? Jackson is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle, but he is an interesting piece because he represents something we do not always see in modern football. A young player who had a difficult year, kept his head down, and came back saying he wants to fight for his place. Whether Chelsea gives him that fight or not will say a lot about the kind of club they are becoming. One thing is certain, though. The summer is coming fast. The decisions are going to be made. And when they are, we will all have something to talk about. What do you think Chelsea should do with Nicolas Jackson? Should he be given another chance to prove himself as the main striker? Or is it time to sell him and use the money elsewhere? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. This community has always had some of the best football discussions on the internet, and this is exactly the kind of topic that deserves a proper debate. Until next time, keep supporting the Blues.